Let's get to some football here with these guys. Let's do more or less. Fortenbaugh, let's start with the actual totals, the win totals on ESPN Bet. The Commanders' total is 9.5 wins. Fortenbaugh, which way do we go?
I would say less here. This is going to be a very, very trendy selection for the public, but there are plenty of indicators that suggest regression. 8-4 in one-score games last season, 6 comeback wins when trailing in the fourth quarter. That's not the type of thing you can replicate year over year. Defense is middle of the pack, 5th healthiest team in the NFL last season. That's important. Teams that suffer a catastrophic amount of injuries versus teams that have fantastic seasons like Philadelphia and Baltimore in terms of health, that tends to regress either positively or negatively the next year. Fewer.
Lewis, they've had a really big offseason. We liked their draft. They've signed a lot of people. What do you think?
Yeah, they've had a huge offseason. Offense is going to be even more explosive because the offensive line is better. Laramie Tunsil's there. They draft Josh Connolly. But they this is going to be a football team. Defensively, it worries me a little bit as far as the pass rush is concerned. But they did improve the secondary. Trey Amos is going to be an all-pro at some point in time. I mean, he's a guy who's like a Patrick Surtain II clone, and that's coming from his defensive coordinator Pete Golding down at Ole Miss. No, I think they're gonna ascend this year because I think the offense is going to be even more explosive.
All right, let's keep moving forward through the teams because I want to get to Pittsburgh. Joe, the Giants' win total is just 5.5. Do we go more or less?
We go more. We don't need to be great to get to 6 wins. We need to be semi-competent. Russ isn't an elite quarterback in the NFL. But he's an upgrade over the quarterback play they had in New York last season. The addition of Abdul Carter, huge for the defense, which already ranked 3rd in the NFL in sack rate last season. And again, regression indicators. New York was 1-8 in one-score games last season. That should flip. I think we get to 6 wins here.
RC, what do you think?
You know what? I do believe they get to 6 wins, but 6 wins isn't getting this team to the playoffs. They did improve to me, and I think that the way that they approached the draft was more of the most competent draft evaluation and execution that we saw this year. This team will be better defensively. Russell Wilson will be better at quarterback than what they had last year. I expect them to get.
And then we'll see when Jackson Dart gets on the field. I thought they had a great draft all the way around. One more win total for you here, Joe. The Steeler total is at 8.5. What do you think?
I'd go less because there's 2 realities here, right? Reality 1, Rodgers ends up playing for the team. And if he does, all right, he'll be 42 years old in December, and the last 2 seasons we saw him out there in full with the Jets and his last year with the Packers. His offense is ranked in the bottom half of the league in EPA, which is problematic. On the other side, there's a reality where Rodgers doesn't play, and then 8.5 under, that looks real good.
RC, we're talking this way. I know you're disappointed in his words. I opened the show by saying the Steelers are at sea. Like, I just don't understand what they are doing. I don't understand how they managed their draft. They have to know something we don't know about Rodgers. I always come to you on these.
I am a huge Omar Khan fan, the general manager, and I think he's done a great job of being more aggressive and adding talent to this team. A departure from what we've seen from the Pittsburgh Steelers throughout history. They totally botched the quarterback situation with this team. This isn't a room that you can go win at the quarterback position, whether it's Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers. What I do know about people within that building is they believe in Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph has a winning record as the starting quarterback there. They say the locker room believes in Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph ain't going out week after week to beat the Joe Burrows of the world, to beat the Lamar Jacksons of the world. And we've seen this team contend and be competent and compete with many people at the quarterback position. I believe this is the year it catches up to them.
Lewis, I was sitting next to you, and their 3rd-round pick came up, and I couldn't believe they didn't take Shedeur Sanders. And then I wasn't there anymore by the time their 4th-round pick came up, and they didn't take Shedeur Sanders. What is your reaction?
Yeah, I think this season they could be in trouble. But they needed to level up at the quarterback position. I do believe that Aaron would allow them to level up if he could continue on the trajectory he was on in the last quarter of the season. And he comes back in 2025 and he can pick up where he left off. He can strike the right accord with Arthur Smith, and Mike is able to keep him healthy. He's able to keep him on the straight and narrow with his wide receiver core, and things can stay harmonious to a certain degree. I think the defense will be competent enough for them to be a 10-win team season. Without him, look, I know that they believe in Mason. I mean, they like Mason in that role. See, the very definition of a backup is a guy who can come in for 3 to 5 games and hold down the fort.
Right.
It's not the definition is not a guy who can come in and win you 11, 12 games and compete with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. That's not the definition of a backup. And Will Howard ain't going to get it done either. I'm sorry, all Ohio State fans, that's not the answer either. They could be in trouble if this situation doesn't
They should
resolve
want to
itself.
be in trouble, though.
What does that mean?
They should want to lose. Like being, and I know this goes against everything that's black and yellow, but they've been a competitive team for the entire time that Mike Tomlin's been there. But since Ben Roethlisberger got to like the last 2 or 3 years of his career, they were not a championship contender.
Right.
And they played just well enough to never get a high enough pick to go get the next Ben Roethlisberger. You're not going to find that dude in free agency either. So whether it's Mason Rudolph, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, they should want to suck finally. They should want to get a top 10 pick in a quarterback draft that looks to be a lot better next year than the one that there was this year.
But see, this is where the confusion comes in for me. And I know people are going to say, hey, look, man, we're tired of talking about Shedeur Sanders. Okay, fine. You can be. So am I. But you know what? This is still a relevant conversation here. In the 4th round, when they picked Jack Sawyer, who is a good college football player, a guy who made a lot of big plays for Ohio State.
Linebacker, Ohio State.
That's right. Why wasn't he considered even that? See, that's the kind of thing, because look, we don't know ultimately what he's going to be as a quarterback in the NFL, but I can tell you this. I would have felt much better at this point in time in the offseason had I had him in the fold as a 4th-round value relative to what I evaluated on tape than with the people that I have right now. And I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to play for us. I would have felt a lot better.
Not mentioned in any of this, they cross over with the NFC North. Those aren't going to be easy games at all. They've got the Chargers on the schedule. They got the Bills on the schedule. And, of course, 2 with the Ravens and 2 with the Bengals. It's not an easy road.
And the other piece for me, too, it's not just about focusing on Shedeur Sanders. It's about trying to upgrade that room in any way, whether it was a guy like Jalen Milroe at an opportunity or a spot where you could have taken him for some value. It didn't seem that the Pittsburgh Steelers had that on their board in the first 2 days of the draft at all. Yeah. And that's what's more perplexing.
Here we go, Louis. I got people, after watching what the Bears have done this offseason, beginning with the coach and all the offensive talent they've accumulated, I got people saying Caleb Williams is going to be an MVP candidate this season. Is that ridiculous?
No, that's not ridiculous. Look, I think starting with Ben Johnson and then moving to the work that they did in free agency with fortifying the offensive line, adding to the weaponry at the wide receiver position. Look, Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan, is a star. He's an absolute star. Luther Burden, look, we kind of forgot about him in the pre-draft run-up. This guy is a stud, too. To go along with Rome Odunze already and DJ Moore, this team is loaded. Caleb has no excuses. And you know what? I don't think he's looking for any. I think this kid is going to light the world on fire this year and really, once again, have people debating him and Jaden Daniels again.
Well, that's the interesting piece. See, that is a fascinating thing to say, and that's putting it out there and seeing what happens. Because my immediate reaction to this, I don't mean to skew towards the somewhat negative, but my immediate reaction was, okay, kid, now it's all you, right?
Yeah,
I mean, last year they had every reason in the world why he didn't play well. Now he has every reason in the world to be the MVP of the league.
But that's exactly what Caleb Williams wants. This kid's never shied away from the spotlight, from being a 5-star to wanting to start at Oklahoma when Spencer Rattler was the incumbent starter who was supposed to be a 1st-round draft pick. Yeah. He knows it's all on him, and this is what Ryan Poles was supposed to do. When you draft Caleb Williams, you put the infrastructure around him to succeed. Last year, we thought it was in place. This year, we know it's in place. Yeah,
Ben Johnson at the beginning of that conversation, and then Colston Loveland and Luther Burden at the end. Okay, next one, staying in the division. Louis, if I said J.J. McCarthy is going to lead the Vikings back to the playoffs this season, is that ridiculous?
Not ridiculous at all. I'm a big-time believer in J.J. McCarthy. I'm a big-time believer in Kevin O'Connell. I'm a big-time believer in Josh McCown. And that triumvirate right there is enough for me to go ahead and say that J.J. McCarthy is going to be well on his way. As long as nothing goes wrong with that meniscus repair, I think he's going to be just fine. Look, they tried to fortify the interior of their offensive line in the draft with Donovan Jackson. They drafted the kid out of Maryland in the 3rd round, Ty Felton. That's going to go along with what is already a stacked wide receiving core anyway. This is one of the most well-managed football teams, best-built coaching staffs in the NFL, and J.J. McCarthy is going to reap the benefits of that.
Oh, see, this isn't the question that we had planned, but it does make me think about it because you got Green Bay. I think they got better. You got the Lions, who are really good, but probably got worse losing their coaches. Bears get better. But who's the odd man out now?
But that's the thing. That's what makes this question such a difficult question to answer, because we know that the Minnesota Vikings have a great infrastructure. We've seen what Kevin O'Connell could do from a schematic and play calling standpoint, and we believe in J.J. McCarthy's talent. That's why he's a top 10 pick. But this is such a difficult division to win with Jordan Love in that division, with Jared Goff in that division, the Chicago Bears ascending. So it's going to be a difficult division to say this is the team that's the front runner, or this is the team that's the odd man out.
That's the one to me, because it's almost impossible for a division to get all 4 teams in it. It can happen. Obviously, there are that many wild cards. But with them cannibalizing each other, it's very hard to do.
What winds up being the differentiator most times, right, is attrition. It winds up being who has the most of their guys available at the end of the year. And that's really what it's going to come down to, because the margin for error with these guys is going to be like slim and none from team to team.
And then the last one here from the ridiculous feature is the Steelers. So if someone says it has not happened on Mike Tomlin's watch, in fact, it hasn't happened since 2003. But the Steelers are finally going to have a losing season. Is that ridiculous?
No, it's not ridiculous, because look, the division is getting better also. Okay, Baltimore is going to be there. Cincinnati's going to get the defense right. They retained all the primary key players on offense. In Cleveland, look, for as much as I disagree with some of the things that they do, with a lot of the things they do in Cleveland, they had a hell of a draft this year. And if they get their quarterback situation at least stabilized, they're going to be right there too, and you know they give the Steelers a lot of problems.
Yep.
Okay? So now with Pittsburgh, what's happened there? How have they necessarily leveled up this football team, in particular on the offensive side of the ball? Well, maybe the offensive line will be healthier this year. We'll see what happens with the running game. But the quarterback position is where it all starts and where it all ends with them, and they haven't addressed it. Until Aaron comes in, and if he comes in, we're going to be sitting here having this discussion.
Yeah, if you're saying it right now today, absolutely. This is a year for the Pittsburgh Steelers to have the first losing season under Mike Tomlin, and I don't want that. I'm going to be honest. I want to get on here and talk about how great of a coaching job he's done, how he's coached above and beyond what that roster is. But you know it like I do, Louis. At some point, the Roosters, whatever they say, whatever that saying is, like at some point you're going to have to answer
come home to roost.
There you go.
The Roosters come home to roost. Or is it the chickens?
At some point you're going to have to answer to not addressing the quarterback position in the way that allows you to compete.
Here's how they're going to do it. Aaron Rodgers, the last minute, is just going to come wheeling in the same way that we sometimes will just wheel people in the way we're wheeling in Joe Fortenbaugh.
This is nice.
They're just going to wheel in Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers, I'm telling you right now, is going to wind up playing better than people are suggesting.
This dude stays on TV now.
Here's what, that's Brandon.
We don't do this on ESPN too, by the way. This is classy treatment.
You got some lifesavers, Brandon?
Here's inside joke. Here's what I think was going on. I'm just guessing, to be clear. No one knows what's in Aaron's head. How does anyone? But here's what I'm guessing. I'm guessing Rodgers was waiting to see what the Steelers did in the draft.
Yeah.
Because if they drafted Shedeur Sanders in the first round at 21, or even if they took him in the 4th round, that might have been Rodgers looking at it saying, you know what, I just don't want to get myself involved in that. They'd be looking for reasons to get him on the field. Now, the draft has come and gone. Free agency has come and gone. They don't have anybody that they're going to be looking to get on the field instead of him. I can see Aaron saying, okay, now I'm good here. This is pure guesswork on my part, but that's what I'm saying.
That's a very reasonable explanation and expectation of how this is going to play out over the next, hell, maybe today, maybe over the next week, maybe over the next month. I can totally see that happening.
That's a reasonable hypothesis, and I think it's stupid if they adhere to it.
Because?
Because you still don't have a guarantee that Aaron Rodgers is going to come into that building and save the day. You don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to be if he does decide to play football for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If I'm making decisions in this draft, I'm trying to build my team in the best possible way to win, regardless of what Aaron Rodgers decides to do. Because if you make all of these concessions, or if you make all of these decisions just for Aaron Rodgers, as we just watched another organization do for the last 2 years, it doesn't guarantee you a championship.
Absolutely not. What are you looking at, Steelers?
Win total's 8.5. You bet over, you need 9 wins. You bet under, you need 8 or fewer. I would bet under. 2 paths here. One, Rodgers doesn't show up, which means under 8.5 looks pretty good given their current situation. Or Rodgers does show up, and you get a quarterback who's going to be 42 years old in December, and the last 2 seasons we saw him start in full, Jets last year and a few years ago with Green Bay, play was in decline. Offense, both those years, ranked bottom half of the league in EPA. That's a telling indicator. One note on Pittsburgh, last 5 years, 37, 15-1 in one-score games. That's a testament to Mike Tomlin and how well prepared that team is, but at some point the math tells us that number is going to drop, and when that number drops off, things are going to go against you in a bad way.
Would be interesting to see how they had these quarterbacks stacked outside of the guys who went at the very top of the draft.
Are you saying the draft?
Yeah, exactly. Because, not having that second round pick really changed a lot of the calculus for them as far as how they were going to build this football team and how they could address that position.
They didn't have it because they went out and got a
wide
receiver in DK
Exactly.
Metcalf. And as Tim Hasselbeck said yesterday on our show, 40-year-old men are not out there in cleats throwing balls to wide receiver if they're not planning on playing. Right? Aaron Rodgers is going to come back and play. All right, indulge us one moment. This is my favorite athlete of all time right this second. I've known Ryan Clark for how long? 15 years? How long have I known you?
Forever.
Whenever you came,
probably.
started doing Mike and Mike, we've had a lot of great moments together. I knew that your son was going to wind up playing someplace in the NFL, getting his opportunity. When I saw it was the Jets, I just about lost it. A moment from you, if we could.
It was
as a dad.
It was a special moment. Honestly, sitting with him through the process, something that I went through as well, and seeing him get on the phone, talk to his agents, talk to Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn called himself to have a conversation about what it would look like if he became a member of that team. It was humbling, but just such a blessing for me. Like, I've watched that kid work since he was 12 years old because he said he had a goal, but he just focused on the system. He focused on the process. And, to see his mother cry, to see his sister cry, the type of joy that they had in the moment. I mean, as a father, it's better than anything I've ever experienced in my own athletic career.
We're so happy for you. We're so happy, more importantly, for him. And I just have 4 letters for you. J-E-T-S. Jets, Jets, Jets. Let's go, Jordan. Come on, baby.
I am dressed for it all.
The green was not an accident today. Okay.